All right, so this Knife Thoughts video is going to be a review of this knife, and this is the Civivi Sokoke. And this is a knife I was really looking forward to when I saw that they were coming out with it, because it is a Ray Laconico design. So Savivi did send this to me for review, so huge thanks to Savivi for that. And make sure you check out the links in the description below. You can get this knife directly from Savivi on their website or from their Amazon store, but also lots of other dealers. So check out those links below. And like I said, I was excited about this knife because Ray Laconico is one of, if not my favorite, custom knife designer. Now, I haven't had one of his custom knives. I'd love to at some point, but they are just really cool because they are very simple and clean lines that really just have a unique look that really is attractive to me. I really like it. And I've actually had another Ray Laconico design made by, this is actually made by We, but the same kind of general company. So We is a sister company of Savivi. And this is the Mass Drop Keen before they changed to just Drop. It's a knife I've had for a long time, really love, has that great simple design. And so I was excited to see another. Now, We also has the Esprit, so another Ray Laconico design, and it's very similar in design to this Sokoke. But the Esprit, being a We, branded knife and having higher end materials, is a good bit more expensive than this Sokoke. So I'm always happy to see a custom knife designer, whose knives are in the 800 to more and more and more range, make a knife for a more budget-friendly brand like Civivi. So I was excited to get to check this one out, and it is a really cool knife. So let's talk about the knife itself. Well, first of all, this is a front flipper and thumb stud opening knife. So you've got multiple methods of deployment. Ray Laconico has been doing some custom front flippers recently, I've noticed on his Instagram, so it's something that goes in line with his customs. And this is the black G10 version. There are other versions also, but you can see it has black G10 handles on both sides, or scales. It has a black G10 backspacer, and then it is a liner lock. So you can see the steel liner lock in there, and it has a pretty typical Civivi deep carry clip. Now, as for the construction, if you're familiar with Civivi, you know that they make a really, really nicely made knife, and particularly for the price. And that definitely holds true here. So this knife came pretty well centered. It doesn't seem perfectly centered now. It seems like it may have moved a little bit towards this side, but I've checked and checked, and even when unlocked, it doesn't seem to have any side-to-side blade play. So I don't know exactly if it did actually move or if it's just towards that side when closed, but it certainly is nowhere near touching the edges, so you don't really have to worry about that. It's not something I worry about with it being just slightly off-center like that. But like I say, it has very nice lockup. So when locked forward and back, there is no play at all. Even when unlocked side to side, there's no play. And the action is really nice. You can see with the thumb stud, flips open. When you unlock it, it drops closed, and really just has the type of action that really drew me to Civivi, which is very, very nice, snappy action that I really appreciate. And then the blade seams ground really well. Another thing that I really appreciate about Civivi that not all companies do is it seems like they grind their blades to be used to actually slice and cut well. So I definitely appreciate that. Has a nice kind of, I think, bead blast finish. Not so much a stonewash, but a bead blast on the blade and the rest of the hardware also, that gives it a nice contrasted look, particularly on this black G10 handled version. So I do like the look of the finish on the blade with that black G10 handle. And then speaking of the black G10 handle, it has some sculpting. So you can see it's not completely flat. It has some sculpting from, end to end here, which makes it, it's a little bit more finishing. It makes it have an interesting look because of the lines that creates here in the G10, but also it makes it really, really extra ergonomic. So moving on to the function of this knife, This knife is super ergonomic. Like, I talk a lot in my videos. If you watch my videos, you know that I think that a simple handle makes for an ergonomic handle. And certainly when you look at this handle, it is a simple handle. It has some curves to it, but they're very gentle curves. And I would say that this knife has superb ergonomics. It reminds me of the type of handles that you might see on like a bushcraft, a higher end bushcraft knife, where it has a little bit of a palm swell, but nice and kind of neutral shapes so that it's going to fit in your hand, whether you have really wide hands like mine or more normal hands. I really am happy with the ergonomics of this knife. It's one of those things that I think you have to actually hold the knife to really understand what I'm saying. It's better than other knives with similar even shapes and you know, materials and stuff. I think that it's just really well done. Ray Laconico did a great job of designing the shape of this handle, and Savivi has done a great job of machining it. It doesn't have a lot of traction. It doesn't have a lot of, you know, peel ply texture, but I don't think it needs it. This isn't, you know, a tactical knife that you're going to be stabbing boards to make like super cool YouTube videos or something like that. It's a knife that you're going to use for, you know, normal EDC tasks, and also just be fun to carry and use. So I think that the smoother handles make it feel a little bit higher end, and definitely don't take away from the practicality, in my opinion. Moving on to the blade, it is a pretty classic drop point. So Ray Laconico does a lot of drop point style blades of different types. Again, as you can see in this knife, maybe more of a spear point on the keen, but similar in shape. And I really like it. It's a very simple, again, shape, but it makes it very useful. So I carried and used this knife a lot, and it did work really well. You have a usable tip, you have a really solid, you know, gradual belly there, a little bit of straight area there too, and so you can use this type of blade shape really for anything. I use this for normal, like cutting boxes to break down some boxes at work, and a little bit of food prep, and just normal daily use. And you know, I think that for an EDC knife, this is going to do everything that you need, this type of blade shape. And it also looks good. I think that it really goes well with, again, the simple handle. It does almost look to me like a folding bushcraft knife. I don't necessarily think that that's what, you know, Ray Laconico was going for with this design, but it's kind of what it reminds me of. If you've seen some of the bushcraft fixed blades, you know, they have similar blade and handle shapes. So I think it looks good as well as works well. The one thing with this knife is that I have never been a front flipper fan. I've never been a fan of front flippers. It's just something I never really found it to be, you know, practical, add any practicality, and it was something where it was just difficult for me. I didn't have the dexterity for it. This type of front flipper is a little bit different, and you can see that it really sticks up and out there. And so at first it did take a little bit of time to get used to it, but I've definitely gotten used to it. And what I've found is I think that a front flipper is an opening method that is well designed for fidgeting, so for just opening and closing the knife for fun. And the truth is that, you know, if you're watching this video, if you are a knife enthusiast, you probably do that at least some. If you were buying a knife purely, absolutely 100% for practicality, you probably wouldn't be watching a video about what knife to buy or just on a knife. You would just, you know, buy one. So I think, you know, if you're interested in knives, if you're a knife enthusiast, you probably do at least a little bit of that type of, you know, fidgeting or just, you know, playing with a knife, having fun with it. And the reason why I think that a front flipper like this is specifically designed for that is because I don't have to move my hand from the position that's in to actually open and close it. So you can see I can do, and you can see I've gotten used to it also. It's definitely easy to flip this open. But I don't have to move my hand from this position. Now I want to show you in contrast on, I guess I'll use the keen again here. When I flip this knife, my hand is in this position. And I think that, you know, if you were looking for an opening method that is the most, you know, practical and takes the least thought, then maybe a normal, a back flipper is a little bit better. But look, I go like this, Now I have to change the grip of the knife in my hand, and then really I have to do that again. I have to change it to here. Now, can you kind of keep it like this? Yes, but I don't think that it's quite as satisfying as being able to just keep your hand in this position right here and be able to open and close it just continually like that without moving your hand. So while for a long time I wasn't really on board with front flippers, I have definitely gotten used to the front flipper on this. I find myself, when I take this knife out of my pocket, actually using the front flipper instead of the thumb stud. But I do appreciate having both options. It's something where a lot of Ray Laconico's custom knife designs that I really appreciate and would love to have at some point do have a thumb stud. So I don't mind having both, but I've really, this knife has converted me, at least on this knife, into being a fan of the front flipper. So I was surprised by that. I thought when I got this knife that I was just going to always use the thumb stud and basically ignore the front flipper, but I have kind of been converted on this one. Now, speaking of the front flipper, one thing I wanted to mention is on a normal flipper knife, you might be able to hold like this. So you can see how my finger is pressing against the top of the handle here, and that's not going to affect anything. The knife can close, with your finger like that. But on a front flipper with, on a knife with a front flipper that extends like this, if I hold like this, it's stopping that. So you do have to let that finger up, which again, I have gotten used to, and it's really no problem. So I've been surprised by this knife, not surprised that I like the design, because I knew that I would like the design, being that it is pretty much a classic Ray Laconico design, but surprised that I really do like the front flipper. I have been enjoying it, and definitely enjoying carrying and using it, but also enjoying just flipping it open and closed. So I wanted to mention also that the Sokoke, I didn't know what the name was. It's kind of interesting. I looked into it. There's a breed of cats that is very, very rare. I saw numbers like there's 27 of them in the world, which is like an insanely small number. But this is named after that. It's a very interesting type of cat. I don't have cats. I'm super allergic to them, but I really like them, so it was interesting to learn about that. But real quick, I wanted to give you a couple size comparisons before wrapping up here. So a comparison to a new modern EDC classic, the Civivi Elementum. You can see that the Sokoke is bigger, but if you like the spear point or drop point blade of the Elementum, then you probably will appreciate the blade on the Sokoke also. I do think that for me, the Sokoke is closer to the size that I typically like to carry. Not that I don't really enjoy the Elementum too, but I really do like the size of the Sokoke. Speaking of another EDC classic, here is the Spyderco Native 5. You can see the Sokoke is larger than it also. Not too much larger in the handle, as you can see, but you definitely get more edge length because there's no 50-50 choil like there is on the Spyderco. So that's something to be aware of. You get pretty much the full blade length as edge on the Sokoke. And then one more classic, here is a Benchmade Griptilian. You can see that the Griptilian is larger, certainly larger in the handle. The blade isn't too much larger. Actually, you get a pretty similar amount of edge on both, but the handle is definitely larger on the Benchmade. So the Sokoke is a knife that I have really enjoyed. I, again, was surprised by how much I do or have come to like the front flipper. And I think that this is a knife, if you like Ray Laconico designs, this is worth picking up. So like I said, check out the links in the description. That's where you can get this knife. Make sure you use my affiliate codes and my discount codes. And again, thank you to Savivi for sending this knife. I really appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, click the bell, and select all so you know when I post new videos. I have lots of other videos on Civivi knives and have more on the way. Also, check out my other social media. I'm on Instagram and Instagram and Facebook at Knife Thoughts, and my website, knifethoughts.com, where I post articles on knives like this and knife-related topics. And last but not least, as always, don't forget to go out and do good.